Hello, my name is Fidelma Brady and I'm the Head of Education with Down Syndrome Ireland. And I want to welcome you to this part one of a two-part set of webinars on choosing a post-primary school. My colleague Nicola Hart, Head of Member Support, will be recording part two of this webinar in due course, and it will also be available on our website. Generally speaking, post-primary education reflects very significant transitions from childhood to adulthood, from the primary school to post-primary school, and eventually from study to the world of possibly further study and work. First of all, we need to look at making the choice. Education is the process that enables each child to achieve his or her potential. So therefore, making the correct choice of school is very, very important for the child to achieve his or her potential. There's a very broad continuum of SEN. Even within Down syndrome itself, there is a very, very wide range of abilities and strengths and needs. So it follows then that there should be a wide range of options available to provide for all of those needs. So parents need to know what these options are. They need to be available and they need to be known to parents so that they can make the best choice in relation to the education of their child with SEN. For many years, there have been reports and guidelines and legislation dealing with the whole area of special educational needs, going back as far as 1993 with the CERC report, and right up to the present day where we have department circulars on various aspects. The most important piece of legislation we have in the whole area of special educational needs is the EPSN Act, the Education of Persons with Special Educational Needs Act, which was enacted in the Republic of Ireland in 2004. Section 2 of this Act makes provision for children with special educational needs to be included in mainstream schools. It is also an objective of the Act that these children would leave schools with the skills necessary to participate in an inclusive way in society and to live independent and fulfilled lives. While it would be wonderful if both of these aspirations could be satisfied, we are very, very well aware that this is not always the case. Sometimes a child with special educational needs with Down syndrome will require all the supports available in a special school to prepare him or her as a responsible, independent, capable and reasonably confident adult. So you can see why choosing a school for your child with special educational needs is a very important decision. I would love to be able to provide a list of questions or boxes to tick that would give you an absolute indication as to which school you should pick. But such a list does not exist. There are no absolute indicators or criteria that, on their own, can be used to determine exactly where a child should be placed. The more information parents have about the range of provision and supports available, the better their choice is likely to be. So we make the decision when we choose a school. Are we going to a mainstream setting or are we going to look at a special setting? There are three main types of provision to meet the range of educational needs found among students in post-primary schools. They are mainstream classes in mainstream schools. There's special classes in mainstream schools, or there are special schools. And of course, it's very important for parents to visit the school placements that are on offer, to visit all the options you have available that will be suitable, in your opinion, for your child to continue their education. In Ireland, increasing numbers of children with special educational needs and Down syndrome, they now attend their local mainstream post-primary school. However, there will be parents whose children have more severe or maybe more complex needs who may wish to consider whether their child would now make better progress in a special or a mainstream setting. You have to decide which setting would be best for your child to continue with their post-primary education. Decide which setting you feel your child would be better and would make better progress as they move to post-primary level. So therefore, as parents, you need to be able to choose the best education for your child. You need to weigh up all of the alternatives before you decide. And remember, all decisions must be made in the best interest of the child. So again, just to recap, you may be looking at a mainstream, you may be looking at a special class or unit, or you may be looking at a special school. Now, there has been no research carried out in this country comparing mainstream and special schools for teenagers with Down syndrome. There has been research conducted in the UK by Sue Buckley, Gillian Bird, Ben Sachs and Tamsin Archer, a comparison of mainstream and special education for teenagers with Down syndrome. What are the implications of this for the parents and the teachers? And this research can be found on the website of downsed.org. And in certain areas, the research shows that most definitely children or teenagers benefit more from going to a mainstream setting than a special education. There has been no benefits really identified for being in a special education setting. There are two big questions underpinning all of this move from the primary to the post-primary. First of all, we have to look and check and see, is the primary school, first of all, going to be ready to deal with the transition of my child from primary to the post-primary school? That's a big issue. And secondly, is the post-primary going to be ready to deal with the transition of the pupil with Down syndrome coming from the primary school? Or is there an element or a feeling in the school that sure, the student will just arrive and we'll take potluck and we'll see what happens and we'll see how we get on? So in choosing a school then, it stands to reason that we make an informed choice. And we need to establish for each school that we're considering the aims and objectives of the school, the organisation of the school, how the school organise the curriculum, what choices are going to be available for my child, how will my child be assessed as they progress through post-primary school, how will the perceived pupil ability influence the learning opportunities offered, what will the role of the teacher be, and very importantly, what will your role be as parents? Relating to the curriculum, it's good to remember that the two curriculums are different. Primary school curriculum is child-centred, very much child-centred, always towards the child and developing the child. Whereas when we move to the post-primary school curriculum, it's more subject-centred. Different subjects really form the basis of the child's educational journey. So let's start and look at the curriculum organisation and what routes the child might have available to them. Students with SEN, and that of course includes Down syndrome and many other special educational needs, attending mainstream post-primary schools, they may be able to follow the traditional route of Junior Cert followed by Leaving Cert, maybe doing a reduced number of subjects. Other students may need an adapted curriculum relative to their needs and abilities. Planning must be done to meet the needs and the abilities of the individual student. And for this, there's now a range of options available as follows. From 2014, first-year students with particular special educational needs began taking elements of the new junior cycle called the Level 2 Learning Programmes, or L2LP for short. L2LPs are designed to suit both special school and mainstream settings. And the important thing to note here is that in the mainstream setting, even though the student might be following the L2LP, they should be included in mainstream classes as far as possible. It's not a case of them doing the L2LPs, but constantly in the resource room or in a separate room if they're in a mainstream setting. They must be allowed to integrate into the mainstream setting with their peers in mainstream, at least on a daily basis. Who is the L2LP geared for? Well, students undertaking the L2LP are those with disabilities categorised as being in the lower mild to the higher moderate range of general learning disabilities. And these students will benefit from the L2LP as it purposely focuses on the development and learning in areas such as basic literacy and numeracy. And this particular aspect, the literacy and numeracy, is so important because it's something we've always recommended, and the research shows that all through post-primary school, children still need to be taught reading skills, writing skills, and so forth. It will build on developing language and communication, their mobility, their leisure skills, their motor coordination, and their social and personal development. All very important areas for the teenager as they progress on the next stage of their education journey. Moving on then from junior cycle to senior cycle, programmes leading to the award of the Leaving Cert are of 2 years duration then, and they're offered in 3 forms. We have the traditional Leaving Cert or the Leaving Cert Established. We have the Leaving Cert Vocational Programme, the LCVP, or we have the Leaving Certificate Applied. They're the 3 options that's available to us. It's possible for a student to follow the Leaving Cert Established and maybe just do 1 subject or 2 subjects. The LCVP or the Leaving Cert Vocational Programme is not really suited to children with Down syndrome for the specific reason that it's obligatory as part of the LCVP that a student studies a foreign language, and that sometimes does not work well for children with Down syndrome. It depends again on the individual child. And the third option we have, which is the one followed by most students with Down syndrome if they have the opportunity, is the LCA or the Leaving Cert Applied. An additional programme can be offered then called Transition Year or TY. It's a 1-year programme and it forms a bridge between Junior Cert and Leaving Cert, and in many schools it's kind of the first of the 3-year senior cycle. It's available to all secondary schools, and currently in Ireland approximately 75% of schools offer the programme. Some schools, they have an obligatory rule that all students must follow the TY. Other schools it's optional, and there are certain criteria in place for children to be accepted into TY, and that's just what the last point makes there. It's optional for students in most schools. Not all schools have it obligatory, but it's becoming more and more common that it is. So on this slide, we see an illustration of the possible progression for the student with special educational needs. So junior cycle, they can have the level 1 learning programs. I haven't mentioned those already, but they're similar to the level 2 learning programs, but they are more suited children maybe with a lower ability, with maybe greater needs, more complex needs. And they're usually concentrated in special school settings or indeed special class settings. That brings them to the end of the junior cycle, and they can move then to transition year, which is their 4th year in post-primary school if it's available. Then after that, they move to senior cycle, and they can build on their L1 LPs, their L2 LPs. They can do components of the Leaving Cert Applied, and they can also do 1 or 2 or whatever number of subjects they're able for from the traditional Leaving Cert route, the Leaving Cert established. And again, just to note again, not all post-primary schools offer the transition year or the Leaving Cert Applied or the Leaving Cert vocational programme. But realistically, as I said already, there's no reason why any student cannot progress and proceed to senior cycle in the school they attended for the junior cycle if they choose to do so. And they can follow and study for the Leaving Cert established, but maybe just doing 1 subject, 2 subjects, depending on the individual child. On the next 3 slides, you will see some points to consider when you're choosing the post-primary school for your child. If you can answer these questions either positively or negatively, they will serve to inform you as you make the decision. So, for instance, do you feel comfortable and welcome in the school? If you get a strong sense that you're not welcome and that your child would not be welcome in the school, well, that is not a very positive impression for you. How much knowledge does the staff have about Down syndrome? How much experience do they have? Now, I don't have a problem with teachers who have no experience, or have never taught a child with Down syndrome, or have little experience. That's not a problem once they're willing to learn and to find out how they can work for the best with that child. What provisions will the school make for your child with their special education? Another question would be, what size is the school? What's the pupil-teacher ratio? The 4th one down there is very important. How will the school communicate with you as a parent? How will they give you feedback about your child? And this is one of the biggest areas that we have to deal with parents and schools, is the issue of communication from schools. Many parents report that the only communication they receive from schools is negative when there is something wrong. And that's not how communication from a school should work. So what system of communication will be set up between the school and yourself as parents, and similarly between parents and the school? What kind of facilities and resources does the school have? Equipment, music resources, computers, etc. Again, the first one is important. Does the school emphasise the children's strengths, and do they celebrate their successes, their individual differences? Or, as we have mentioned already, is there constantly more of an emphasis on negative things, on issues and problems that arise? If you're considering a special school to continue your child's education at post-primary stage, what opportunities will your child have for meeting and engaging with their typically developing peers? Now, this really has nothing whatsoever to do with the school. This would be down to the parents, but there's still issues worth considering. Similarly, if you're considering a mainstream school, where will your child meet and engage with other children with Down syndrome? And I suppose the final point there is, if the school is a mainstream school, how much will your child be actually and genuinely included? If they're just going to be a name on a class roll or on a school roll, but for everything else they're separated from their peers, that's not inclusion. So just now to take the opportunity to tell you about some very useful resources that's available to you. The NCSE have a number of useful resources on their website. The first one there, Changing Schools, Moving from Primary to Post-Primary School, Guidelines for Parents and Guardians. The second one there is Choosing a School, and that goes through the range of school options that are available, starting from the very beginning at primary school, right up through the post-primary stage. And to look to at our own website, the Down Syndrome Ireland website, we have a number of publications as well. We have supporting students in post-primary school, that would be mainstream schools, and we also have supporting students with Down syndrome in special schools. And the third publication we have there is supporting students with Down syndrome making the transition from primary to post-primary school. Now, we will be having webinars later in the year on the transition from primary to post-primary school, but that booklet there is useful for you to have a look at in the meantime. Finally, just to finish out, this is the website for the NCSE, National Council for Special Education, that have the resources available to download freely that I've indicated to you already. And secondly, you'll see the link there to our own website, where you will find the booklets I have mentioned, and you will also find a series of online seminars and webinars that are up there already, and they will be helpful for you and have helpful topics for you, and indeed for any prospective school you might be considering to send your child. And finally, just to give you some contact details, as I said at the beginning, my colleague Nicola Hart, the Head of Member Support in Down Syndrome Ireland, will be uploading the recording of part 2 of this webinar on choosing a post-primary school, and that will be available on our website in due course. And Nicola's email contact is there, nicola@downsyndrome.ie. And finally, my email address is vidalma@downsyndrome.ie. And please don't hesitate to contact me at any stage if you have any queries. And just there, that's the website then of Down Syndrome Ireland itself. So thank you very much for joining this webinar. I hope you found it useful. Bye for now.